Hi there, my name is Eric Needham, and this is my Relationality project. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a white male. My name's Eric. I grew up in southern Ontario in a town called St. Thomas, about 30 minutes outside of London. The town was predominantly white, however, London itself offered a lot of diversity. My mother worked in immigration, so I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, especially those from the Middle East. Um, Talking about my mother herself is Canadian. However, her grandfather came from Holland as an immigrant. No language or traditions or anything was really passed down. He immigrated during World War II, and his big belief was kind of to fully assimilate into Canadian culture. My father's side came from Scotland and Ireland in 1845 during the potato famine, and have been farmers their entire time within Canada, so there isn't really a history there. And for the most time, they've just spent their time in Canada on the west coast of southern Ontario. I believe it's always important to talk about the gifts that an individual brings. It allows self-reflection, and especially from an Indigenous perspective. The gifts that I chose are reciprocity, leadership, and the skill to survival. As I've read in the Woman in Gift Economy article, reciprocity is the mutual sharing for something given and something taken. Very much a belief that I have on a micro scale and something I try and exhibit daily. Leadership, I feel I've been in roles and I've seen the benefits of the leadership mentor role with a leader, leadee, and something that I very much feel comfortable within. The skill to survival gift is something I'm always a little skeptical on because I've had a lot of time working in the bush, and I'm not my first rodeo by any means. However, I have had tools and information, and I think true knowledge of the land is something that really evades me, and it's a skill that must be mastered for years. When looking at accountability, to myself and my family, I think accountability is everything. I feel as it's an aspect of interconnectedness within this world, and it's important to understand that your impact. There are no insignificant impacts. This kind of follows that 7 generations teaching, where it's important to understand that everyone is seen as accountable, and they must ensure the viability of the land and resources for 7 generations into the future. I was said by Clarkson et al., 1992. I think building community and connections is very important when dealing with Indigenous communities due to the colonization, as well as I feel like assimilation is a new form of colonization where Western views are put on the Indigenous. This came ever apparent with the food scarcity issue, where food systems were seen from a Western perspective, and this disproportionately affected the Indigenous people. As well as I see this in the education system, where the education system, as much as it's getting better, is still taught from a Western perspective on the history of the atrocities of the Indigenous individuals, and it does not teach a lot of culture, traditions, and beliefs of those that are Indigenous. I think if we want to build community and connection with these, we have to affect the young students, the ones learning, and address a developmental change at a macro and meso level. I think maintaining community connections with Indigenous communities is very important. I think there's many ways this can be done. A couple ways here are to help fund Indigenous-centered schools, and not just schools themselves, but all aspects of Indigenous centers. Incorporation of Indigenous practice within all events. A loss of tradition is something that came from colonization, and I think it's important to enact those traditions again and beliefs and values. I think support for Indigenous voices is very important, not just allowing white individuals to speak over top of Indigenous individuals and taking that voice from them, but giving them a voice and a platform where they can speak. And I also believe in allowing opportunities for change on a meso and macro level. I think it's more important to get individuals in the larger changes at this point in time, and we can see true growth from that and maintaining these strong communities. And these are my references.